Welcome back to Sports Call here on Tiger 95.9, the Tiger.fm, and the Tiger Communications app. Ryan Lavoie and Tom Peavy on Radio Row. It's SEC Media Days 2026 in Tampa, Florida. We are pleased to be joined by the host of the Locked On SEC podcast, Chris Gordy. Chris, the time is greatly appreciated. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing better than Brian Kelly today, but doing good, guys.
Oh, Chris, again, we always love catching up with Chris, again, usually at Media Days, sometimes throughout the year. And, again, Chris knows so much about the Southeastern Conference. So let's start with Auburn because Auburn is a part of the shebang here on this Tuesday. Alex Golesh coming in after his time in Tampa in South Florida. What are your expectations for him?
Well, I think the arrow's pointed upward. It's funny. Auburn fans I've talked to this offseason said we just want to score points. Like, we don't care. We want to win games, but we just want an entertaining brand of offense. That's because, again, Hugh Freeze could tell, we're close. Yeah, you're close, but we had to watch a 20-17 debacle where the quarterback couldn't complete a pass. That's what you guys have had to watch the last couple of years. So I think he's going to bring an exciting brand of football. It's just, does it translate to wins? And look, I hate to say 6-6 is an improvement. 7-5, I think, most people go, okay, good foundational year. Let's build off of this. But I think some Auburn's have even talked themselves into, man, if Byrum Brown hits and these receivers hit, we know DJ Durkin's going to have a really good defense again. Is it crazy to think that this could be a 9-win team and then even ceiling 10 wins if everything goes right? It's a tough schedule, but it's manageable. But I think most people, realistic Auburn fans, say we just want to see an improvement on offense. We just want to see, again, let's get to a bowl game. Let's get something established this year and build off that.
And thinking about wins and losses now, can't skip over the Baylor game, but that Auburn-Florida game seems to loom really large, really for both of those programs. Just in your mind, how big is that Auburn-Florida game at night in Jordan-Hare Stadium?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a big measuring stick. Look, there's no doubt. My wife went to Kentucky. Their dream guy that they wanted was John Summerall. It just wasn't going to happen. Auburn fans I talked to wanted John Summerall. We saw what he did at Troy right down the road. And so when he takes the Florida job, it does kind of feel like, okay, we play that. That's our first SEC game. We want to prove that we got the right guy and we made the right hire. Now, it's advantage Auburn because it's at home, but I've said that's one of the more – and I think, it's the same night as LSU Ole Miss?
Yes.
So that just sucks because that's going to get all the love and attention and hype. But to me, we're talking like of important football games this season in the SEC. To me, it's not – I'd put it in the top 20 of most important games this year. That's a game Auburn has to have. And for Florida, it's a game that they feel like they're talking themselves into John Summerall being a potential playoff coach. It feels like one that they can't afford to lose. So it's a monster game for both sides. And it just goes back to this thing of all offseason. I've been hearing people say, John Summerall, like everybody's falling in love with Summerall, Florida. I'm going, why not Auburn? Like, people are putting Florida as a top 25 team, slipping in at 24-25. Why not put Auburn in that 24-25 territory?
And look, Chris, with this Auburn and Florida game, something that we talked about already this week is that you had a real rivalry there. It meant a lot to a lot of people for a while. You've got the 9-game schedule now to where you're going to play everyone every other year. For old rivalries like that, or for just games in general that are now not going to be happening each year, we always talk about the playoff part of it and having the 9-game strength of schedule, but what can it do for teams and programs that are still trying to either rekindle rivalries or keep rivalries going to be playing them every other year?
Yeah, I just think that's the reality of the situation. Mathematically, to make things work, to play 9 SEC games with 16 teams, you're not going to play. You're going to have your main rivals, but you're just not going to play the same teams every year. And so there's going to be a little bit of give and take on that, but that said, it's funny. We talk about playing 9 SEC games and a group of 4 or Power 4, non-conference game as well. I think fans have to kind of realize only 12 teams make the playoffs, and the SEC was very lucky to get 5 teams in last year, but that's not going to be the norm. If we go to 16, we go to 24 or whatever, we'll see what happens down the road. But all I'm saying is, like, the new thing, going 9-3, people are going to poo-poo on those seasons and go, oh, you didn't make the playoff. You suck. To me, we should celebrate 9-3. 9-3 should absolutely be celebrated because that's a hell of a season considering you're playing 9 SEC games and a Group of 4 team or a Power 4 team.
Sure. I mean, it would imply that you've gone better than 500 against all your Power 4 competition, plus racking, we've talked about that. There has to be 8 more SEC losses now because there's 8 more SEC games. Yep. So someone's going to lose an extra game. Half the teams in the league are going to lose an extra game. Let's talk about the league as a whole. I feel that the quarterback play going into it seems very strong. Is that your impression, and who do you like towards the top 3 or 4 spots there?
There's a lot of names, but it's also a lot of guys that put up stats, but maybe a little hollow. And what I mean by that is most people are saying Marcel Reed is a really good quarterback. What were Marcel Reed's best wins as a starting quarterback last year? It felt like the 2 biggest games he played, he didn't show up and played terribly. And that was the last game of the regular season against Texas, where they, had a chance, their first chance to go to Atlanta on the line, and they, fell flat on their face. And then a home playoff game against Miami, and you don't show up, and you play one of your worst games. And so I say all that to say it's like we hype these guys up in our head in the offseason, this guy's a really good quarterback. And it's like we really don't know until we see this year. Gunnar Stockton, I think, is a good quarterback. It's gutty and all that. But, is he, would you put him as the second best quarterback behind Arch Manning? Is Trinidad Chambliss, are we giving him maybe a little bit too much love? And is it going to look different without Charlie Weiss and Lane Kiffin running the offense? There's a lot of things that fall in line there. But, yeah, I think, like I said, SEC they've got a lot of names. But, again, I think it's still a lot unknown. Lenore Sellers. Do we get the Lenore Sellers we saw 2 years ago, or that whatever the hell that was last year? There's a lot of guys like that, and again, I think most people agree Arch Manning's gonna elevate and be awesome. But a lot of the questions around the SEC on what some of these guys are going to be.
Sticking with quarterback and going back Auburn-centric with Byrum Brown, can he fit into this system with the wonky throwing style and everything, or do you think there could be issues there? What do you think about it?
This isn't the combine in Indianapolis. I'm not a GM drafting him for my NFL team. I just need him to go complete college passes, and it's something he's done at a very high level and been very good at. And then, his running ability is probably his biggest compliment, and what he does with his game. And so, everybody's like, is this going to translate to an SEC schedule? Time will tell on that, but certainly we have a track record of James Madison players translating to Indiana the past 2 years, and that's working out pretty well. So, I used to get on your high horse with that kind of stuff. Like, this is big boy football in the SEC, AAC, you can't do this here. Well, I think the playing field is leveled a lot in terms of, we're seeing teams from other conferences hang with and beat the SEC now, and the football has leveled out. Gone are the days of Georgia and Alabama where they were 4 deep at every position and you got 5-star after 5-star. The playing field has leveled way more this year.
So obviously there's a head coach in the SEC that was a head coach in the SEC last year for a different school.
Yeah.
His name is Lane Kiffin. I know there's long-term effects with LSU and Ole Miss, but in short term, for this season, does LSU make the jump that they want to make in year one, and can Ole Miss maintain something close? Now, it's not going to be the same thing, I think we can all agree, but something close to what they were the last few seasons.
Yeah, I'll start with Ole Miss. Somewhere along the way, guys, Ole Miss fans have convinced themselves that there are Ole Miss fans right now that honestly believe they are in a better spot right now with Pete Golding than they were with Lane Kiffin. And I'm like, guys, you can rally around your guy. You could say, all right, this is our guy, Pete's our guy. But come on, let's be a little bit realistic with this thing. Last I checked, were teams beating down the door to hire Pete Golding the last few years? I mean, it's not to say you settled. It was a pivot, and I think it's a good pivot because you were able to keep Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey, and you're a little loaded team this year and should be, potential playoff team. But I think we also have to convince come to the reality that Pete Golding is a guy that may not be a great head coach. Again, looked great in the playoff, but he was doing that with a lot of the staff from Lane Kiffin's staff. So we'll see what happens on that front. But for Lane Kiffin, I do think yes, they want to take a leap forward. They want to be much better. They want to be a playoff team. But I also don't subscribe to the if LSU doesn't make the playoff that it's a total bust and oh my God, what is this Lane Kiffin? He's got to establish something there. And yes, they have a $40 million roster in NIL. That doesn't guarantee anything. Brian Kelly had a huge NIL roster last year, and it went belly up. So, but look, if they go 9-3 or 8-4, is it a disaster? No. I think, again, LSU fans suffering from what Auburn fans suffer from. We want to see some entertaining offense. That's what they want. The schedule's tough, though. So if they lose to Texas and they lose at Tennessee and they lose to, I don't know, even Clemson in the opener, like it's like people are going to poo-poo. National people are going to poo-poo on Lane Kiffin. I think at least LSU fans are reasonable enough to go, all right, look, guy's got to get in here and get his feet under him, recruit, and all that, and then we'll see what Lane Kiffin at LSU will be.
Is Georgia the safest bet in the league to make the playoff this year?
They always are. I mean, Kirby's one of the best coaches of college football for a reason. It is weird, guys, the perspective of how we look at things now. For a few years, remember it took a while for Kirby and Georgia to win an SEC championship game. It was like, they could get there, but they'd fall short against Alabama and all this. And then they won one. And then these past 2 years, they are SEC champs. They are the best team in the conference. You won the SEC championship game. And yet all anybody wants to talk about is, well, you lost in the playoff. No, we don't even give them credit. It's like, what are we doing here? We have to acknowledge being the best team in this conference and winning the conference championship of the toughest conference in college football should mean something. And so I think, again, it's just this weird world we live in where we diminish achievements and stuff like that. Yeah, I think Georgia's the safest bet to go, and again, schedule's tough, but 10-2 playing in Atlanta seems like a pretty safe bet for Georgia.
He is Chris Gordy, the host of the Locked On SEC podcast. Chris, we've appreciated the time today. Where can you find the podcast and what you got going on this week here at Media Day?
Yeah, Locked On SEC, wherever you get your podcasts. I had a great conversation with Champ Anthony we'll have on the show tomorrow for any Auburn fans out there. And had a really good interview a few weeks ago with Cole Best, the starting center for Auburn, and kid I really like a lot and wishing him the best of luck. So, yeah, Locked On SEC, wherever you get your podcasts.
Again, he is Chris Gordy, the host of the Locked On SEC podcast. Chris, we appreciate the time today.
Anytime, guys.
That is Chris Gordy today on Sports Call.